Discover the incredible truth, how 24 hours in a medieval dungeon could change your life forever. Jamie Turner sat in the empty diner, the ghostly smell of fried food lingering in the air. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead like fireflies in the quiet of night. She wiped down the last table, her heart heavy with dreams. Life as a single mother wasn't easy. She slaved away at the diner, scraping by with the last crumbs of tips. She couldn't shake the constant worry that she was failing her children, Mia and Jake. As she closed her eyes, she imagined a life where they didn't have to worry about bills, where laughter filled the halls instead of silence. But then, she spotted something, a whimsical flyer taped to the bulletin board by the front door. Want an adventure? Enter for a night in a medieval dungeon. At first, she scoffed at the absurdity of it. Who would want to spend the night locked away in a dark, damp dungeon? But deep down, beneath the surface of her exhaustion, a flicker of excitement ignited. What if this was her chance? She was desperate for an escape, a reckless adventure to break free from her monotony. So, with a hesitant heart, she entered the contest. But as she stepped into that dungeon the next week, her world shifted. The heavy door clanged shut behind her with a finality that echoed in her chest. The darkness enveloped her like a thick fog, and reality struck her hard. Instead of the excitement she imagined, she felt a familiar wave of loneliness wash over her. Memories came flooding back, her father leaving, the sting of abandonment forming the skeleton of her fears. She was shut in a metaphorical prison, yet the solitude held a strange allure. Jamie pulled out a pen and paper, her lifeline in this dark abyss. She began to write letters to Mia and Jake, pouring out all the fears she had bottled up inside. What if I'm not enough? What if I fail you? Tears blurred her vision as the words flowed. Each letter transformed into a cathartic release, pushing against the walls of her despair. The storm outside raged on, but so did the storm within her. Just then, she discovered that while she was in that dungeon, something unexpected was happening back home. Her tight-knit community had rallied around her, organizing a fundraiser at the diner to support her family. It was a wave of gratitude, kindness, and love radiating from every corner. Could it be? Maybe she wasn't just a waitress after all. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jamie uncovered the strength hidden within the words she wrote, her letters evoked gratitude from the townsfolk. They saw her resilience, and admiration replaced the mere acknowledgement of a waitress. And just like that, Jamie felt the walls around her begin to crack. But as the door to the dungeon creaked open, revealing a splash of light, Jamie found herself standing at the threshold of transformation. Could she really embrace this newfound courage? Would she finally confront her own worth and reclaim the dreams she had cast aside? The darkness behind her hummed with uncertainty, leaving readers gripping the edge of their seats, anxious to see how Jamie would navigate the profound journey that lay ahead. The light flooded in, illuminating the cold stone walls and chasing away the shadows of doubt. Jamie squinted against the brightness, feeling warmth against her skin where moments before, there had only been the oppressive chill of the dungeon. She took a deep breath, the taste of hope sweet on her lips. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she didn't feel trapped. As she stepped into the light, the echoes of her past whispered around her, but they were softer now. Each step toward the doorway signified a step away from fear, a step toward action. The haunting images of her late-night fears began to fade, replaced by the faces of Mia and Jake, bright, resilient, and thoroughly dependent on her. The thought filled her with determination that surged like a fire in her belly. Once outside, she squinted, letting the sun warm her face. The world was vibrant, filled with sounds she had long overlooked: the chatter of people, the rustling of leaves, the laughter of children. It was as if she had been given a second chance. She didn't waste time. Her heart raced as she walked toward the diner, eager to embrace her newfound purpose. As she pushed through the door, the familiar jingle of the bell welcomed her back, but today it felt different, as if it were heralding a change. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed in an unexpected way. Friends and neighbors were gathered around tables, laughing and chatting, their faces bright with concern and affection. Jamie's heart swelled at the sight. The diner wasn't just a workplace, it was her community, a tapestry of lives woven together. Maggie, her best friend and waitress buddy, rushed over, her hands fluttering in excitement. "Jamie! You won't believe what has been happening. Tell me." Jamie urged, her eyes wide. "They organized a fundraiser, everyone's pitching in. We're collecting donations to help you with the bills." Maggie's voice was thick with emotion. "People are sharing stories about you, about how hard you work and how much you mean to us all." Jamie felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. The weight of her isolation began to lift. She wasn't just a single mother fighting against the odds, she was part of something larger. The love and support of her community was a powerful force, and for the first time, she realized it wasn't just about her. Excited murmurs filled the room as the door burst open, and a chorus of familiar faces cheered. They had transformed the diner into a celebration of Jamie, the woman who epitomized strength in the face of adversity. "Hey, Jamie!" A voice called out from the back. It was Mr. Thompson, her neighbor, holding a large jar filled with crumpled notes. "This is a collection from everyone on the block. We just want you to know we've got your back." A warm flush spread across Jamie's cheeks. She couldn't believe how loved and supported she felt. This was the spark she needed, she was energizing, and she vowed to turn this moment into action. Maybe she could start a new chapter, one that inspired not just her but her children and those around her. "Thank you," she shouted, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you all so much. I can't express how much this means to me." The crowd erupted in applause, and Jamie knew at that moment that she was not alone anymore. This community had chosen to stand by her side, to lift her up when she needed it most. As the voices faded into laughter and the day slipped forward, Jamie remembered the letters she had penned in the dungeon. This was just the beginning. She would share her story, not just with her family but with the world. How could she use her journey to inspire others? But just then, a thought struck her with fresh urgency. What would happen when her children came home that evening? What story would she tell them, and how would it turn their lives around just as hers had begun to turn? The door swung open again, and a figure stood there, silhouetted by the snow-fringed sunlight. Jamie's heart raced, she recognized that stance. Would it be the person she feared most, or someone who could change everything for her family? She stepped forward, her heart pounding not just with curiosity but with hope as she prepared to confront whatever awaited her. Jamie held her breath as the figure stepped into the diner, shaking off the cold as they entered. The familiar contour of that silhouette ignited a mix of hope and apprehension. She squinted, willing the faces in the crowd to part, revealing the person who had just walked in. As the sunlight spilled onto the floor, illuminating the stranger's features, Jamie's heart fluttered. It was David, her brother. His expression was a mix of determination and warmth, and at that moment, everything around her seemed to hold its breath. "Jamie!" he called, pushing through the swarm of people who immediately stopped their chatter to witness this reunion. His voice held a kind of urgency that made her pulse quicken. "David!" she finally managed to say, rushing toward him as the crowd silently observed. The noise of the diner faded, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat. It felt surreal. The years apart melted away as she embraced him tightly, feeling the strength of his presence wrap around her like a security blanket. "I heard what has been going on," he said, pulling back to look into her eyes. "I couldn't sit back any longer, sis. I had to come and help." But as his words sank in, the warmth swelled in her chest, clashing against a lingering doubt. What did he mean by help? For all those years apart, had he simplified her struggle? Her appreciation was tinged with fear, but she couldn't let that block the joy of seeing him again. "I can't believe you're here," she replied, trying to capture everything she felt in that moment. I thought I lost you too." "No more of that." David shook his head, his brow furrowed with concern. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. We're family, right? We face everything together." Around them, the crowd started to buzz again, reintroducing the life that had just felt too vast to manage alone. Jamie pulled back, scanning the faces of her friends and neighbors. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about family, about community. "How did you even hear?" she asked, trying to bridge the gap of time that had separated them. David sighed, glancing back at the people who once had shared their lives. "Word travels fast in this town. When Mia called me I knew I had to come," he said, his eyes serious. "You've been carrying too much on your own. Who knew people were talking about me?" Her cheeks flushed again, both from embarrassment and love. "You shouldn't have come just for me, David. You've got your own life." He cut her off. "And you're a part of it. I want to help you." She saw the determination in his eyes, but uncertainty clouded her mind. What did help look like? The questions began to swirl in her mind, like the snowflakes outside the window. David reached for her hand. "Whatever you need, I'll support you. You're not alone. But I need you to be open with me about what's going on. We can't fix what we don't talk about." Maggie joined them, offering a small smile. "I can help too. We're all in this together." As Jamie stood between her brother's steady presence and Maggie's love, a flood of emotions poured through her. There was fear of the unknown, shame at her struggles, but most importantly, there was an echo of hope and undeniable urge to move forward. Just when she thought she could muster the bravery to leap into this new chapter, a memory flickered through her mind, the letters she had written in the depths of the dungeon. Those weren't just words of despair, they held a passion waiting to be unleashed. With this reunion, she felt something shift inside her. She could talk about her fears. She could share her journey and perhaps even inspire change. Just then, a sudden noise made her turn. The door swung open again, and this time it was Mia, her children trailing happily behind, but her heart dropped when she saw the expression on Mia's face. Something was off. She rushed to them, every instinct screaming that the day had more to reveal. "What happened?" Jamie asked, her voice tight with anxiety, wishing she could shield her children from bad news. As Mia looked up, Jamie's heart raced once more. "It's about Jake. He's in trouble." The moment hung heavy in the air. Another challenge lay ahead, threatening to shake the foundation she had just started to build. How much more would she have to face today? The diner felt charged, almost electric, as Jamie's heart raced with the weight of Mia's words. "Trouble?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. The air around them thickened, drowning out the normal chatter of the diner. She looked from Mia to her children, whose faces reflected confusion and concern, and her heart broke a little more. Mia stepped closer, lowering her voice. "It's Jake. They found him at the old mill. He was caught." David interjected, his brows knitting together. "What do you mean? Caught doing what?" "They think he was involved with some people, some risky business." Mia's voice trembled slightly. "The local kids have been getting into things they shouldn't. I don't know all the details, but he's scared. He called me, Jamie, and I could hear it in his voice." Jamie felt as if the room was spinning. Jake had always been the one who couldn't stay still, the kid with dreams bigger than the town itself. How had it come to this? She searched Mia's face, longing for reassurance, but found only worry. "Let us go talk to him," David suggested, stepping forward. "We can't let him face this alone. But we need more information, Mia. Can you take us to him?" Mia nodded, determination replacing her earlier fear. "Yeah, I'll drive. We have to hurry." As they gathered their things, Jamie's mind whirled. She felt the familiar undertow of panic but clenched her fists, grounding herself. David was here. She wasn't alone this time. They would face whatever came next together. Outside, the wind bit at her cheeks as they hurried to Mia's car. The chills seemed insignificant compared to the heat of her anxious thoughts. The journey to the mill felt both immediate and far away, every moment stretched with the tension of uncertainty. "Jake is going to be okay," she muttered under her breath, almost as if willing it into existence. But deep down, doubt crept in. What if he wasn't okay? What if there was something they couldn't fix? Mia turned and glanced back at her, reading the expression on her face. "We'll figure it out, Jamie. Kids make mistakes, but that doesn't mean they can't turn things around." Jamie opened her mouth to respond but was silent, the irony of those words cutting deep. Hadn't she spent so long trying to reclaim her own life after her mistakes? How could she guide Jake when she felt like she had lost her own way? The car pulled up to the dimly lit mill, an old structure standing like a ghost against the evening sky. As they approached, Jamie's legs felt heavy, each step weighed down by the anguish of uncertainty. She glanced at her brother, whose face was resolute, filled with a fierce protectiveness that shielded her from doubt. "Let us do this," he encouraged softly, squeezing her shoulder before stepping forward. The door creaked open, and the darkness inside swallowed them. Jamie felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. As they walked further in, a sense of dread coiled in her gut. "Jake?" Mia called into the shadows, her voice echoing off the walls. It hung there, weighty and fraught with anticipation. Silence responded, thick and unsettling. They all exchanged worried glances, fear pooling among them. Just then, a figure shifted in the corner, blurry and uncertain. "Mia?" A hesitant voice emerged, trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Jake!" Jamie blurted out, heart racing. As he stepped into the faint light, Jamie's breath caught in her throat. Something flickered in his eyes, fear, but also an undeniable spark. Yet just as quickly, his expression shifted, resignation flooding his features. "Jamie, I messed up," Jake started, his voice cracking under the weight of panic. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen now." Standing at the edge of yet another storm, Jamie felt a mixture of anger and pity. How could she help him navigate this if she was still trying to find her own way? Just as she opened her mouth to reply, her phone vibrated in her pocket. It was a message from Mia, but Jamie's heart began to race not just from the content of the message, but from an overwhelming sense that whatever was about to unfold wouldn't just change Jake's life, but hers as well. "Something's coming," Jake said, his eyes wide with fear. Jamie felt the dread deepen, and she braced for the truth that lay ahead. What other challenges awaited her in this new chapter? "Jamie, what do we do?" Jake's voice wavered, echoing off the damp walls of the mill. The flickering light caught the sheen of sweat on his forehead, and his eyes darted, searching their faces for answers that didn't seem forthcoming. Jamie opened her mouth to speak, but words eluded her. She took a deep breath, her chest tight. "We're here for you, Jake. Just take a step back. Tell us what is going on." Mia shifted, crossing her arms as if to shield herself from the distress pouring out from Jake. "You said you messed up. What kind of trouble are you in?" He shifted nervously from one foot to the other. "I wasn't involved at first. I just wanted to hang out with the guys. I thought we'd just be having some fun, but things escalated. They're into some serious stuff, Mia." "What do you mean by serious?" David pressed, eyebrows drawn tight, concern palpable in his tone. Jake swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "They deal. I didn't know until I was already in too deep. They said it was just for kicks, but I saw them trading with guys from out of town. I tried to back out, but they wouldn't let me." For a moment, the weight of his words hung heavily in the musty air. Jamie's heart raced as fear coiled tighter. She'd known the whispers around town about the kids getting involved with the wrong crowd, but to think Jake was caught up in it made her stomach churn. Have you told anyone else? Jamie's voice was sharper than she intended. Mom and Dad? No. He exclaimed, shaking his head furiously. I can't. I'll be in even more trouble. They won't understand. No one will. But we can't just let this go, David interjected, tension radiating from him. We need to report it. Get help. Jake's eyes widened. No. If they find out I said anything, they'll come after me. They have connections, people watching. Jamie stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. Jake, listen. You're not alone in this. We can help you, but you need to trust us. You can't handle this by yourself. I don't want to bring you into this. I can fix it on my own. I wish I could turn back time, he murmured, his voice breaking. Jamie took a deep breath. You can't change the past, Jake. But we can figure out a way to deal with this. Together. He looked at her, searching her gaze for something solid, some glimmer of hope in the chaos. You promise? Absolutely, she replied, each word steady and firm. The air in the mill shifted, as if a weight had been lifted, even temporarily. But just as Jake took a deep breath, ready to share more, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed outside. They froze, eyes wide. Did you hear that? Mia whispered, her voice tight with anxiety. What if it's them? Jake murmured, panic rising once again. David nodded, urgency flooding his features. We need to move, now. We can't let them find you here. Just as Jake opened his mouth to protest, Jamie grabbed his arm, pulling him close. We'll figure this out, but you have to trust us, okay? No more hiding. We're with you. At that moment, a loud thud against the door rattled the building. Jamie's heart dropped. Go. Get out the back. David urged, ushering Mia and Jake ahead of him. They moved as one, adrenaline rushing through them, each step quickened by the looming threat outside. But Jamie couldn't shake the ominous feeling that this was just the beginning. As they slipped through a narrow passage at the back of the mill, she couldn't help but wonder, had they just stirred a hornet's nest? When they emerged outside, the cold night air hit them like a slap, invigorating yet terrifying. What waited for them in the darkness beyond? Where do we go from here? Jake asked, his face pale under the moonlight, a fragile resolve beginning to crack. Somewhere safe where we can breathe, Jamie whispered as her heart thundered. What they didn't know was that the real storm was just getting started, and this was only the eye. With urgency fueling their escape, Jamie looked to her brother, his face set with determination. We'll figure this out, I swear it, she promised, though the fear nagged at her from inside. As they moved further into the night, a chilling thought pierced her mind. What if they were being watched, even now? What if the real danger hadn't found them yet? They stumbled into the shadows of the trees, the moonlight filtering through the leaves like pale fingers clutching at their clothes. Jamie felt her heartbeat echo in her ears, the thuds of fear and adrenaline mixing into a song of anxiety that wouldn't let her breathe easily. Where to? Mia whispered, her voice barely above a breath. They had to move, but every instinct told Jamie to stay alert, to minimize noise and stay close. Down to the river, David suggested without hesitation. It's quiet there, we can figure out our next move away from prying eyes. Jake nodded, looking back toward the mill as if some phantoms might be chasing them already. They won't follow. Not this far. But Jamie wasn't so sure. Something twisted in her gut like a knife. What if they have eyes everywhere? We can't think like that, David replied, moving toward the river, determination etched on his face. If we let fear control us, we've already lost. Jamie took a deep breath. She had to focus on Jake. He needed them now more than ever. As they weaved through the underbrush, the darkness seemed to close in, thick with the scent of damp earth and the rustling sounds of unseen creatures. Moments later, they reached the water's edge. The river was a silver ribbon under the moon, whispering secrets as it flowed. They huddled together as if the water could offer them a layer of protection. "Jake," Jamie said softly, reaching for his hand. "We're here. We'll make a plan." He looked at her, vulnerability in his eyes, the sparkle of fear mixing with desperation. "I just want this to be over. I don't want to run or hide anymore." Mia chimed in, her voice steady. "Then let us confront it. We need to report what you know, get help from someone we trust." "No." He burst out, fear bubbling to the surface once more. "What if they find out? I can't risk putting you in danger." Jamie squeezed his hand tighter. "You're already in danger. And if we don't act, it only gets worse. Trust us, Jake. You have to trust someone." A heavy silence lingered, where the murmur of the river seemed almost mocking. It felt like an eternity until Jake finally nodded, albeit reluctantly. "Okay. But if we do this, we stick together, no running. I can't lose any of you." "Promise," Mia assured, looking steadfast. David nodded in agreement, pulling out his phone. "We need to find a way to reach someone who can help us without alerting any of them." While he scrolled, Jamie's heart raced again. The risk was monumental, but they had no choice. Every second spent in hesitation could mean another chance for the darkness to overtake them. David's eyes suddenly widened. "I have an idea. There's a guy I know who doesn't get involved with anything serious. He's trustworthy. He has connections that could help us figure this out without putting you at risk." "Are you sure?" Jake asked, doubt lining his tone. "It's the best shot we've got," David said with fierce conviction. With the plan taking shape, Jamie felt a surge of hope intermixed with the fear. They had a glimpse of a way forward, but the shadows of uncertainty loomed large, darkening the glimmer of possibility. Just as they formed a plan, a flashlight beam pierced through the forest, illuminating their hiding spot. It swept back and forth, searching, hunting. "Hide!" Jamie shouted, adrenaline pumping through her veins as they scattered into the bushes. With her heart pounding, she slipped behind a thick tree trunk, holding her breath. The beam of light drew closer, and the familiar knots of panic twisted deeper inside her. They weren't just running away anymore, they were being hunted. "Stay quiet," she mouthed, glancing at Jake, who was wide-eyed and trembling. Would they truly be safe tonight? The beam flickered over Mia and David's positions before pulling back, but Jamie's gut twisted. The real fight was just beginning, and with every passing second, the danger loomed closer still. As the flashlight faded into the distance, a chilling thought formed in her mind. They might have escaped for now, but would they ever be free? The question hung like fog in the air. How much longer could they remain hidden? What would they have to sacrifice to put an end to this nightmare? The night stretched on, enveloping them in an oppressive silence that felt thicker than the trees around them. Jamie's heart thudded like a war drum, echoing the lingering tension that seemed to grip the entire forest. They could still hear the faint footsteps of their pursuers, the brush of leaves and the creak of branches amplifying her sense of dread. "Did you see the way the light moved?" Mia whispered, her face pale against the dark. "They're getting closer." Jamie swallowed hard, trying to suppress the rising panic. The last thing she wanted was for her fear to infect the others. She glanced at Jake, who was too still, too silent. She could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he wrestled with everything they had just discussed. "Jake," she said, softening her voice, "we're going to get through this. We just need a few minutes to think." He looked up, desperation etched in his features. What if we try to sneak back to the mill? Maybe we could find something, anything to help us." The idea hit Jamie like a brick. "No. They'll be waiting for us there. It's too risky. We need to find a place to hide and gather our thoughts." "I agree," David said, shaking his head. We need to move, but we can't head back. We can't head anywhere predictable. Use the trees. Stay off the paths. If they have any idea of where we might go, it's south, likely the last place we would be. Just like a game of chess, Mia added, we need to anticipate their next move. The group had fallen into a tactical mindset, instincts kicking in as their survival became priority over everything else. While Jamie felt the tremors of anxiety, a new resolve washed over her. They couldn't let fear dictate their actions. Okay, let us regroup, she said, her voice firm. We need to head downstream along the river. If we keep low and use the water as cover, we can find some thickets up ahead. From there, we can plan. Got it, David replied. Stay close. The chill from the river seeped into their bones as they moved quietly along the bank, ducking behind bushes and low branches, keeping their breaths shallow. The moonlight flickered behind the clouds like a heartbeat, making their escape feel like a surreal nightmare. Suddenly, a snapping twig echoed in the silence, freezing them all in their tracks. Jamie's heart raced again, an urgent whisper filling her ears as the beam of the flashlight reappeared. It splashed across the water with a harsh brightness, illuminating the surface and creating a brilliant reflection that danced violently under the clouds. Over there. The voice was low but intense, piercing through the darkness with a sense of authority that sent shivers down Jamie's spine. They're right on us. Mia shouted, panic creeping into her voice. Run! Jamie commanded, her body moving before her mind could catch up. They splashed through the shallow water, cold droplets soaking their clothes and easing their urgency with every frantic step. With each hurried breath and pounding heartbeat, they tore through the shadows, the elements of nature swirling around them. The forest felt alive, each rustle a threat, each crack in the branches a reminder that they were not alone. As they moved further along the river's edge, inhaling the pungent, earthy scent of damp soil, Jamie's mind raced. How could they outsmart the hunters? They stumbled into an overgrown thicket that offered them a temporary haven, the thick underbrush a natural barrier. Collapsing against the coarse branches, the group gasped for air, the panic finally settling into an eerie silence. Are they gone? Jake whispered, the question hanging in the air, dripping with uncertainty. The darkness seemed to thicken, and Jamie's heart sank. They couldn't afford to hope blindly, they needed a plan. But as they crouched in the thicket, Jamie's mind echoed with one haunting question: did they have the strength to confront what waited for them, or would they become all-consuming shadows themselves? A loud rustle interrupted her thoughts. She turned abruptly, catching sight of a figure darting away between the trees. Did you see that? Mia gasped, eyes wide. Jamie nodded, her heart racing anew. What was that? Fear entwined with urgency. If there were more threats out there, could they afford to hesitate any longer? Time was running out, and so were their options. Would they find allies to help them, or would they face the unfolding darkness alone? Jamie peered through the tangled branches, her heart pounding as the shadows danced around her. The sight of the fleeting figure had sent adrenaline surging through her veins. It vanished before she could make sense of what she'd seen. For a moment, the thicket felt like a cocoon, wrapping them in its prickly embrace. But each breath was heavy with suspense, as if the very air whispered sinister thoughts of what lurked beyond their sanctuary. What do we do? Mia's voice was barely above a whisper, fear breaking her words. Jamie could see the flicker of terror in her friend's eyes. They all felt it, the overwhelming weight of uncertainty. We wait, Jamie said, her tone steadying. We can't rush into the unknown. If it was someone trying to escape them, we might have a chance to find allies. We just need to be patient. Jake clenched his fists, frustration radiating from him. But what if it wasn't he? What if they're closing in? His voice cracked, desperation spilling through. Jamie moved closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. We'll be smart about this, she replied. We need to listen, to watch. The moments dragged on, each second feeling like an hour. The forest around them shifted, the sounds of nature felt both alive and menacing. Every rustle of the wind felt amplified, each distant call of nocturnal creatures echoing like a siren in the thick night air. Then, without warning, another movement, a low growl emanating from just beyond the thicket. The group froze. Jamie's heart hammered against her ribs. "Did you hear that?" David asked in a hushed tone, his eyes darting toward the sound. "Yes. We have to stay quiet," Jamie said, her voice taut with tension. They huddled closer together, hearts racing as the noise grew closer. Suddenly, a massive shape emerged from the darkness, the glint of eyes reflecting the faint moonlight. It was a wolf. Hollow and gaunt, it sniffed the air, cautious yet curious. Jamie held her breath, the creature's presence both terrifying and awe-inspiring. "It doesn't seem aggressive," Mia's voice trembled. "What if it attacks?" "We don't move," Jamie whispered. As if sensing their stillness, the wolf's gaze locked on Jamie. Time stretched, the world sharply came into focus, the fear faded slightly, replaced by an unexpected connection. This wild creature was equally a product of its environment, a survivor in a world where danger lurked around every corner. Then, out of nowhere, a loud crack pierced the stillness. The wolf jerked, eyes wide, and with a final piercing look at Jamie, it bolted into the underbrush. The moment was gone, but the weight of it hung heavily in the air. Before they could process the event, shadows cast by figures materialized against the backdrop of trees. Jamie's breath caught in her throat. "Get down," she urged, pushing her friends into the undergrowth. Heartbeats pounded like drums in the silence as cloaked figures emerged from the darkness, their presence mixing dread with a confusing twist of hope. "Are they the ones hunting us?" Jake mouthed, fear flashing across his eyes. "I don't know," Jamie whispered back, her mind racing with possibilities. They could be saviors or a new kind of threat. Suddenly, one of the figures stepped forward, lifting their hood to reveal a face marked by scars yet strikingly familiar. "You're safe now. Trust me," he said, and Jamie's heart leaped at the recognition that tinged his voice, but she felt the grip of uncertainty tighten again. What if he wasn't telling the truth? What if his intentions were darker than they appeared? Jamie pulsed with questions that could shift their fate, and as the figures drew closer, the nature of her resolve began to crack. Would this stranger truly guide them to safety, or was this just another layer of their nightmarish chase? The answer hung in the air, a chilling enigma waiting to unravel. Would they dare to follow him into the uncertain night? The cloaked figure lifted his hands, palms facing out, as if to calm the fear that hung heavily around them. "You know me," he insisted, his voice steady yet low. "It's Ethan. We haven't much time. They're searching for you." Recognition washed over Jamie like a wave. "Ethan? From the old days how?" Confusion tangled with relief, causing her to falter. Memories surged, days of laughter, secrets shared under warm sunlit skies. But that was before everything changed. Before the world became a twisted shadow of itself. "Focus, Jamie. We need to move," he urged, scanning the darkness behind him. Mia's eyes darted between Jamie and Ethan, uncertainty written across her face. "What do we do? How do we know we can trust him?" Jamie felt the weight of her friend's anxiety, but there was something undeniable in Ethan's eyes, an urgency that transcended their shared past. "No one else is here," she said, steeling herself. "If he wanted to harm us, he would have done so already." David, always the cautious one, leaned closer. "But what if he's leading us into a trap? We have to think this through." Ethan took a step closer to them, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "You don't have time to think. I've seen what they're capable of. We'll need to get you out of here now." They've already started to gather the search parties. Jake frowned, his doubts still flickering. "What are you? A traitor or an ally?" "Neither," Ethan replied sharply, his brows knitting in frustration. "I'm here to help. We can't discuss this now." His eyes swept the perimeter, aware that time was running short. A growl echoed from deeper within the woods, and their breaths halted in sync. The wolf's presence had set the stage for their confrontation, lingering as a reminder of the rift that lay between civilization and the wild they feared. James shared a look with Mia, who was visibly trembling. Swallowing her fear, she turned to the group. "I think we have to trust him. We might not get another chance." Ethan took a breath, glancing at the trees once more before gesturing for them to follow him. "The path is treacherous, but I've cleared it as much as I can. Stay close. Stay quiet." They moved cautiously, senses heightened. Jamie could still feel the echo of the wolf's hungry gaze, a primal bond bridging their disparate worlds. With each step, she wrestled with her uncertainty. Old memories flooded back, but new fears pushed them down. Could she truly trust this version of Ethan? As they advanced through the underbrush, the forest began to transform. The trees grew thicker, their shadows deeper, and the sounds of the night shifted. It was no longer just the chirping of crickets, the rustle of leaves and snapping of twigs began to reveal hidden dangers. "Why are you really here, Ethan?" Jamie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I couldn't just sit back and let it happen. I've been doing what I can, gathering intel, keeping eyes on you," he said, glancing back, his features tense. "But I didn't expect it to come to this." "What do you mean?" Jamie pressed, feeling the surge of a new resolve mixing with lingering doubt. "Just wait, you'll understand," Ethan muttered, drawing them further along the winding path. Suddenly, their surroundings began to change yet again. Shadows that once felt like allies morphed into something darker, creeping closer and surrounding them with haste. "Ethan!" Jamie exclaimed, feeling a prickle of warning run down her spine. "What is happening?" Before he could respond, the ground beneath them tremored, and an ominous rumbling filled the air, reverberating with the promise of chaos. "Run!" Ethan shouted, the urgency in his voice tangible as he urged them forward. Adrenaline shot through Jamie as they propelled into the unknown, hearts racing as the looming threat closed in. The comfort of familiarity began to unravel, leaving only the stark reality of their peril. They sprinted into the dark, leaving everything they knew behind. But as the world fell away behind them, Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that what lay ahead would change everything, or lead to their demise. What secrets would Ethan share that would rewrite their fate? Would they risk the truth, or would it consume them all? The shadows curled around them, whispering secrets that only the night understood. The pounding of feet echoed against the forest floor, a chaotic rhythm of urgency as they sprinted further from whatever darkness chased them. Jamie felt the panic swell in her chest, but beneath it all lay a faint ember of hope. If Ethan was right, if he could help them escape this nightmare, maybe they could turn things around. They maneuvered through the underbrush, branches clawing at their clothes as they pushed forward. Jamie glanced back, catching sight of the dim lantern light flickering behind them, drawing closer. "They're gaining," she called out, fear gripping her voice. Ethan pressed on, leading the charge through the maze of trees. "Keep going. We need to reach the clearing ahead," he shouted over the thrum of the night air. Jamie felt the heat radiate from her pounding heart, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Do you trust me?" Ethan asked suddenly, glancing over his shoulder, determination lighting his expression. "I have to," Jamie gasped. Doubt lingered like fog in her mind, but she couldn't afford to linger on it. As they stumbled into the clearing, the moon hovered overhead, illuminating an open space glimmering with the reflection of the river. "This way," Ethan urged, moving off the path and into the brush again. There was no time to think, no space for fear. They followed him into a dense area of trees, and suddenly, the sounds of pursuit faded to a dull hum. Jamie's heart raced, thuds echoing in her ears, still unsure of their fate. "Stay low," Ethan instructed as they crouched among the underbrush. The tension hung thick in the air, their breaths shallow. Jamie felt her hands tremble as the adrenaline began to ebb. Silence enveloped them. The world felt suspended, caught in the balance between fear and the flicker of hope. They listened intently, strained ears hardly daring to breathe as the muffled sounds of their pursuers drifted away like leaves in the wind. A few moments passed, each one stretching into eternity. Finally, Ethan turned to them, his expression unreadable. "We're far enough," he said, voice low but steady. "What now?" Jamie asked, the quiver in her tone betraying her attempt to remain composed. "We head to my place. It's an old cabin by the lake. No one will think to look there. I've made connections, they can help clear your names, keep you safe." Jamie's heart raced again, but this time, it was with relief. Perhaps they could actually escape this, could begin to piece their lives together again. "But how do we know you haven't led us into a trap?" "It's hard to trust after everything," she admitted, pushing through the worry that bubbled just beneath her resolve. Ethan held her gaze, the weight of sincerity in his eyes cutting through the shadows. "I know our past is complicated, but I wouldn't put you in danger. You just have to believe in me. I'm not the person I used to be either." Mia leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. "If we don't take risks now, we may lose everything we've fought for. I say we trust him." Jamie looked between them, her heart racing. With a deep breath, she made her choice. "All right, let us go." Under the moonlight, they moved as one, flanking Ethan as he led them deeper into the woods. The path twisted and turned, the trees thick with secrets and shadows. As they approached the cabin, it emerged like a beacon, nestled against the edge of the lake. Hope flickered like the bright stars above, yet uncertainty crept back into Jamie's mind. "Ethan, once we're in there, what happens next?" "We'll draft a plan together," he responded, unlocking the door with a weary sigh. "We need evidence, something to hold against them. Once we get that, no one can threaten you again." Inside, the cabin was rustic but inviting, with a faint hint of cedar filling the air. They gathered around the small wooden table, their eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight. Jamie felt a sense of calm washing over her. They were safe, at least for now. "Do you have anything that can help us?" she asked, glancing at Ethan, who rummaged through a trunk, pulling out maps and papers strewn with markings. "Some old contacts, local insiders. We'll reach out to them to find out what's happening in town. They can get information without alarming anyone," he explained. As they began to strategize, Jamie felt a spark reignite within her, a fierce determination to protect her family no matter the cost. "If we can prove Jake's innocence, we can rebuild everything," she declared, surprising even herself with how strong her voice sounded. "Exactly," Ethan agreed, nodding. "We'll do this together." The weight of despair began to lift, replaced with a feeling of camaraderie. They huddled close, brainstorming ideas, energy swirled around them like the wind outside. Hours passed, and their plan took shape, woven from threads of hope and resilience that Jamie had felt before. She remembered the letters she had written in the dungeon, the catharsis of release and expression. As their discussion thrummed with possibilities, she felt the promise of a bright new beginning wrapping around her heart. But even in that refuge, they still had to confront the storm that loomed on the horizon. Just as they finished mapping out the first steps of their strategy, a sudden sound shattered the calm, a loud crash, shattering the silence and pulling them from their brief moment of hope. What was that? Jake's voice trembled, eyes wide with fear. "Stay low," Ethan warned, rushing to the window as panic surged within the cabin. Jamie's heart raced at the sound of footsteps, heavy and purposeful, inching closer. "They found us," she whispered, fear locked tight in her throat. The hunt was still trailing them, the battle was far from over. "Time to move," Ethan urged, guiding them to the back exit. "We can't let this be the end. We fight together now." With a sense of renewed purpose, Jamie rallied them. "We stick together. No matter what." As they slipped out into the night, the storm awaited, ready to test the strength they forged through this journey. What waited around the next corner was uncertain, but united by their shared struggles, they wouldn't back down. In the end, they were not just fighting for their lives, they were fighting for each other, ready to confront whatever darkness awaited them. And so they sprinted into the night, fear and hope wrestling for dominance in their veins. One thing was for sure, they'd face the storm together. Now, amidst the uncertainty that swirled around them, Jamie felt not just the fear of the unknown but the invigorating power of resilience. They would reclaim their lives, one step at a time. Now is the moment for you to take action. Don't hesitate. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and motivate you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep our stories alive. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending, letting us know what you thought. And don't wait not even one more second to share this powerful video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep this community growing and thriving together.